Management 3234, Fundamentals of Entrepreneurship. Hope everyone is well. Today is session 10. It would be literally day 5 of week 2 if we were together, but it is session 10. Nothing to share with you administratively. Today I'm going to present the information about the product market technology statement as well as the venture screen, because those are both deliverables on the turns out they're deliverable on 22 July, which I think is our last day of class. I think the day after that is when we have our final. So, before I get into these two important documents, a PMT statement and a venture screen, I want to tell you a fun story about the life of the Norton family. My wife, we're close to 30 years of marriage, and she had a piece of poop when we married. It was a beater Taurus wagon. Just the tires were just worn down to the steel cords. Hadn't had an oil change in 96,000 miles. So as a wedding gift, I had about a 2-year-old Cadillac. We met and married in Atlanta. We were both practicing as CPAs. This was more symbolic than anything else, but on our wedding, I gave her the title to my Cadillac. It was paid for. It was free and clear. And I started driving the POS, the piece of stuff. And the point is that not long after that, we got her a decent, so she drove the Cadillac, drove it for a couple of years. Sadly, we were in an accident, the car was totaled. Everybody was well on both vehicles, but the Cadillac was totaled. So I think we replaced that with a mid-size sedan, and that was sort of undistinguished. Didn't keep it long because we had our last child, our kid who is now a senior here at Southern. She's a 22-year-old major in elementary education. But when Macy was born, the mid-size sedan was no longer sufficient. It couldn't carry the family. So we upgraded, got a Ford Expedition. All right. I loved it. I thought we were going to keep it for 20 years, but no. Those rascals at the Ford store sold her first Lincoln. So we've had 3 successive Lincolns that spanned about 17 years, I guess. First a sedan and then 2 crossovers. But a couple of years ago, Elaine decided that she wanted to drive something distinctive. She didn't want to pull up beside somebody else in a crossover, and it's the same vehicle. So my precious wife, as a daily driver for about 1.5 years now, has been driving a 1989 Bronco 2. We found one in extraordinary condition. Fabulous condition, original paint, great interior, great mechanicals, low mileage, just a collector car, literally. So my wife's daily driver is a 31-year-old Bronco 2. And as much as she likes it, I won't let her leave town with it, because my concern is I don't want her going somewhere in a 30-year-old vehicle and having it break. I want her to be in something new and reliable and under warranty. So, recognizing that she likes distinctive vehicles, you'd have to live on a raft in the South Pacific, yes, not to know that Ford is rolling out a brand new Bronco. They haven't been in production for probably since like 1996, so it's been about 25 years. So Ford is rolling out a new Bronco in 2021. There'll be 2 variants, but the significance of that is, I read today, there are all sorts of spy photos and paparazzi and speculation and goobers on YouTube channels that think they know everything. Stop it. Ford announced today publicly, it's on a lot of news feeds. I've seen it on Fox, I saw it on Yahoo, I've seen it on some others, that 9 July 2020, roughly 3 weeks from now, the 9th of July, Ford is going to have an official debut of the Ford Bronco. The 2021 vehicle is going to be launched in the spring of next year. I actually don't know what that means. I called our friends at J.C. Lewis here in town and left a message. I don't know if that means that Ford is going to make it, you can place an order, we'll know what the options are, what the price is. I don't know if they're going to have like demonstrator vehicles at the various Ford dealerships. I don't know what that means, but on 9 July of this year, Ford has the official debut of the Bronco that's going to be launched as a 2021 model. And that's kind of exciting in the life of the Norton family. We'll see what happens. So, Today, as I mentioned at the start of this video, is me doing two things with you, talking about the product market technology statement, and then talking about the venture screen. So, I'm going to dive into the Journal of Management Education article because that's where you get guidance on it. And I want to point out something. Please grab this. Please write this down somewhere. The information for PMT statements and for venture screens is on 2 pages in that article. Pages 822 and 823. So if you email me and say, "Oh, Dr. Norton, I don't know what to do," I'm going to say, go to pages 822 and 823, and it's right there in plain English. Very clear guidance. So the point is that I'm going to focus on those 2 pages in terms of where the content is located. So let me jump in. All right, here's page 822. Now, the only thing, 2 things that we're going to focus on here will be you writing a product market technology statement and you developing a venture screen using Timmons 4 anchors. I'm going to immediately shift to what those 2 tasks will look like, precisely what you would give to me. Now, I want to point out something that's in the syllabus, something that I've talked about briefly, and that is no matter what the set of your venture ideas is, I mean, it could be 6, it could be 15, it could be more, I don't know. From that set of venture ideas, I want you to choose the idea that you think is most promising. If you were to take it to market, if you were to commercialize it, I just want you to key on that one idea. That's what you'll be writing the PMT statement about, that's what you'll be developing the venture screen about. So, no matter how big your set of venture ideas turns out to be, pick the one that you think is most viable, most promising. So let me scroll down, and what you're going to find out with this PMT thing is there's not a lot of guidance because it's really quite intuitive. The venture screen is considerably more complex or lengthier. But let me scroll down so you see a little bit more about the PMT screen, statement. Forgive me. All right, that one paragraph at the bottom of 822 has everything in this article that I can give you. There is no guidance for me to give you beyond what is contained in that paragraph. A product market technology statement essentially defines a business. Think about this, if you will. If you can, in a conversation with me, whether it's written or whether we're over coffee or we're in an elevator, if you can tell me the products or services that you want to bring to a market, the primary market segments that you plan on serving, and the principal technologies you're going to use, you've defined your business. One of the things that this PMT statement is actually surprisingly good for is something called an elevator pitch. I'm going to tell you what I recall about elevator pitches. The first time I ever saw that in print, I learned that Wake Forest University, which is basically in the Research Triangle of North Carolina, had a well-regarded MBA program in entrepreneurship, and North Carolina, in the Research Triangle area, was a major regional center for banking and financial services. So the downtown in the 3 cities that make up the Research Triangle would have these 40, 50, 60-story office towers. And what Wake Forest did, what their faculty did with the kids in this entrepreneurship program, is they would identify financiers, whether they're private equity, whether they're commercial lenders, whatever, but they would identify people who would consider financing a new venture. And the kids, this was a graded exercise. The kids would get on the elevator at the bottom, and it was keyed, so it only stopped at the top. There were no stops on intermediate floors. And the students had 60 seconds from the time the doors closed until the doors opened to pitch their idea. That's why it was called an elevator pitch. But I credit the folks at Wake Forest for coming up with that novel approach. Because again, let me go back to what I said just a moment ago. if you can tell me the product that you're going to bring to market, the market segments that you're going to serve, and the principal technologies, you've defined the business. And if I'm somebody that's interested in being an angel investor, or whatever the case may be, I will say to you, I'd like to hear more. What you're doing, loved ones, is you're setting the hook and reeling me in terms of my interest. And in this elevator pitch that was done with the Wake Forest MBA students, when the elevator got to the top and the doors open, the venture capitalists, this is not cruel, they would say, please come with me, or good to talk with you, I'm going to step out and the doors are going to close. It's only pass or fail, isn't it? People are interested in your concept or they're not. But this ability to deliver that message in 60 seconds really has a lot of virtue. So my point is that if indeed you are entrepreneurial, this PMT statement isn't just you defining your business in writing, it's a great platform for you developing an elevator pitch. I have watched what I'm about to say. I was in a coffee shop with a friend of mine who is a venture capitalist, and a young man who was joined the Venture Club of Louisville and knew this venture capitalist was active in that community, said, could I please share my idea with you? We're standing in line in the coffee shop. By the time we get up to the front of the line, the kid's time was done, and the venture capitalist said, let's talk. So this ability to present your concept quickly with clarity is a very big deal. So you can use the PMT statement for that. But here's what a PMT statement is. When you write yours for your idea, I would be surprised if it's more than a half a page of written text. Because all you're going to do is tell me those three things. What product am I taking to market? I'm going to sell men's shirts, men's dress shirts. The principal segments that I'm going to serve will be people who wear what you and I might call professional attire, suits, sport coats, that kind of thing. If you're going to sell golf shirts or fishing shirts, would you serve a different segment? You would. And if you say to me, Principal Technologies, I plan to have a store, a bricks and mortar store, but I'm also going to have a very robust online component. So you've told me the product that you're going to bring to market, you've told me the segments that you're going to serve, and you've told me the principal technologies you're going to use. By that I mean this is a pure hybrid platform, face-to-face as well as an online component. And think of how many different directions that could go. First of all, you could be service providers, couldn't you? You could say, I'm going to have a company that has a boat-based pressure washing system. That's the service. And the market segment I'm going to serve would be the Santee Cooper Lake in South Carolina, Lake Allatoona in Georgia, you know, the Okefenokee Lake in Florida, 450,000 acres and a lot of bass. I've spent 3 days down there fishing once. Great, great place. So my point is, in my silly example, you're going to have a boat, literally, that has on board the ability to pressure wash docks. And so that's the service. The segment you're going to serve will be anyone who has lakefront home with a dock, whether they use it to fish or launch and recover boats or whatever. And you're going to tell me the specific market that you're in. Now, could you franchise that? You could. Could you put boats in other lakes? Could you transport one boat to another lake? Could you say, I'm making this up, for the month of May, I'm going to be in Santee Cooper, then I'm going to move to North Georgia, then I'm going to move to Central Florida, in August or July or whatever? Indeed, you could. So what's the product or service? What are the markets you're going to serve? And what's the principal technology? Now, in the case of a boat, what you would need is you would need a tank, possibly two. One with some kind of a soapy solution, because almost all docks are going to be wood. And then the other thing you would need is you need a separate tank with just clear water. And you need something to pressurize it. So that means you need a pump with an electric motor. That'd be a pretty easy thing to put in a boat, wouldn't it? And my point is that if you're on a lake, everybody on the lake is going to know. They're going to say, Norton's just doing a great job. He did my deck for $150 or whatever I did. So, product, market, technology. What products or service are you bringing to market? And this does not need to be in-depth or extreme. All you need to do is make me aware of what you're bringing to market. A dock pressure washing service, men's shirts. I don't see any here, but new squeaky markers for whiteboards. What's the product or service you're bringing to market? What market segments are you going to service? Now, you can't say to me North America or everybody that's over 5'4", because all that stuff is absurd. A segment, by definition, is a group of purchasers who have similar needs. College students have similar needs. You need housing, transportation, food, textbooks, casual clothing. If you were a female CPA, would you also need professional attire? Every single day you're going to have to wear some sort of a jacket or shawl and either a tasteful dress or a suit or a pantsuit. You're going to need accessories like purses and belts and shoes and stuff like that. So your needs as a female CPA for dress are very different than if you're an OR nurse at East Georgia Regional Medical Center. You're going to need scrubs and masks and comfortable shoes that don't spark because you're going to be in operating rooms with oxygen. So my point is, a segment is a group of people who have similar purchasing needs. So tell me the market segment or segments that you're going to serve. Product or service is pretty straightforward. What discrete, identifiable segments are you going to serve? Don't say everybody with a right arm. Don't tell me something stupid like that. And then the technology is simply, how do you plan to deliver it? How do you plan to get it in front of me? How do you plan to actually deliver the service of the product? And you could and should tell me both. For example, if you're that boat-based deck pressure washing business, I would hope after you're doing a few homes on the lake that there's a word of mouth, that there's a strong referral service. But you darn well better have an internet presence, whether it's on social media or a classic website. It might be a really good idea to get in a local newspaper because all the residents of that community would likely read it. So tell me how you will get your product or service in front of me as a potential user, and then tell me how you're going to actually deliver it. Those are the technologies. So if you think about that, to arrive at the point where you can give me that definition, what are the products or services, what are the market segments, what are the principal technologies, that may take time and reflection and thought. But when you write it down, it's only going to be a half a page. That's all a PMT statement is. And if you reach out to me to say, I'm not sure what to do, all I'm going to do is say, I can't tell you anything other than go to page 822. Because a PMT statement is intuitive. Tell me about the product, tell me about the market segments, tell me about the principal technologies. There's nothing that I can add to that. I hope that the examples I used give you ideas, especially with market segment, especially that. But again, and even the use of technology. How do you get your business in front of me? How do I get awareness? How do you build awareness? And then separately, how do you deliver? So that's a PMT statement. So I'm now going to scroll down to 823. We're going to talk about a venture stream. Now, you'll see that it's described as Timmons' 4 anchors. Here's a useful backstory. Jeff Timmons is now gone. I don't remember how many years ago it was that he died, but he was an incredibly well-regarded entrepreneurship scholar. He had faculty appointments, I think, at Harvard and Babson, just a great, great guy. Great teacher, great scholar. A man that's an exemplar. And Timmons came up with something that was eminently practical, and he called it the 4 anchors. And he developed it primarily for his students, and he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this is a venture screen. You have an idea. Take this screen and overlay it. Answer these 4 questions, and if you can answer them favorably, your venture has a great deal of potential for success. It's likely you could launch it and it would succeed. But if any one of these 4 things falls out, you must rethink the concept. There's something that's deeply flawed. So it was described as, Jeff didn't name it that way, other people did. It was called Timmons' 4 Anchors. It's presented in a book that's about 15 years old. Jeff Timmons and Steve Spinelli. In fact, your textbook is Spinelli and Adams, but it's a later version. But Jeff Timmons is responsible for this 4 anchors screen. And what it does is it assesses a proposed venture's viability. What are the chances this thing will succeed? And it looks at 4 factors that predict success. Boom! Next page. All right. Anchor number 1, does this idea or concept create or add value? There should be market acceptance if the answer is yes, but you have to provide persuasive evidence of the value proposition. And my view is that you ought to think through this value proposition in the context of a duality. It has to create value for your company. It has to do something that either increases revenue or decreases cost. But what about the value proposition for the customer? If I'm your customer and you violate my value proposition, I'm not giving you any money. So when I say to you about, does it have to create value? It has to create value for you, the entity. It does, or it's worthless. There's no value. And it has to create value for your customers, or they're not going to give you their money. What if you said to me, Bill, I will sell you this gel pen for $180. I would say, yo mama, I bought this one at Office Max for $5.95, so jump off the planet. You don't get my money. What you're offering me is something that's functionally identical to this pen, but at about 30 times the price. Does not make the cut on my value proposition, does it? So, when I say to you, consider, does this idea or concept create or add value? I want you to look at this through two lenses. Does it create value for my business, my emerging business? Does it create value for the customer? If you can answer those affirmatively, you're in a good place. But I really think you have to consider that duality. The second thing, is it differentiable? Now, I don't know, with the exception of one student, I don't know where any of you are in this class in terms of your academic progression. The one student that I'm thinking of graduated in May, and she's taking this class, and I think only this class, to wrap up her undergraduate coursework, and I celebrate her success. But my point is that the only pre-req for this class is management, forgive me, principles of management, 3130. And most of you would have had that as sophomores. So you could be very, very early in your academic career, you could be at the midpoint, you could have graduated in May, and now you're wrapping up your undergraduate curriculum. So I don't know where any of you are. And for that reason, it strikes me that the only time you would understand differentiation is if you've already had the class in strategic management. We have a capstone class, Management 4131, and it teaches strategy. And in strategy, in that class, you learn about generic business strategies. And there are only two, cost leadership and differentiation. So I'm going to give you the short version. If you've had this material, hallelujah. You're in a position to just smile and relax and think, got it. But if you haven't had it, and that is likely, I want you to know what differentiation is. As I said, you could perhaps identify thousands of strategies, and I get that, but every single one of them would be some derivative of trying to be cost leaders in an industry or trying to differentiate your product or service from other people. So here is, you must capture this, here is the classic definition of differentiation. It has two parts. Part one of the definition of differentiation, it's a strategy, is you build in features to your product or service that make your customers choose it over competing products. I'm going to use Michelin tires because I think it's a great example. Michelin tires has had a presence in this country for 50, 60 years. I know that they have a manufacturing facility in South Carolina. I've toured it. They may have others, but there's a big factory in the Columbia area. And my point is that Michelin, for the last 25 or 30 years, no joke, we have the data, for the last 25 or 30 years, Michelin has had a 55% market share in all the aftermarket car and light truck tires sold in the U.S. There are 14 or 15 or 16 companies that manufacture and sell tires in the U.S. One company has 55% of the market. The other 14 or 15 are fighting for the remaining 45%. Who would you like to be? Would you like to be Michelin or one of these other players that's non-dominant? Now, Michelin has had that success for 25 or 30 years because Michelin makes extraordinary tires. I have bought them for, I don't know, 25, 30 years. I put them on every street car that I own, that my family members own. I'd put them on my riding mower if they made them in that size. Michelin tires have extreme service life. They actually are also engineered to handle well in the wet. And all of us drive in the rain a lot. And that's a good thing. I've been in other tires like Firestones. I thought I was on a rodeo. I mean, I'm really serious. And bucking, and I made it to 8 seconds, but the Firestones came off right away. and I put Michelin's on. So here's the deal. Michelin's have extreme service life. I'm driving a truck that's only about a year and a half old now. I bought an F-150 in 2018. But before that, the truck that I had before that was an F-350. It was a 1-ton turbo diesel because I towed a lot of heavy trailers. And I put a set of Michelin's on that before I got to 1,000 miles. It came with Firestone. I thought they were unsafe. They were so dangerous. So I drove to the dealership, slapped a checkbook on the desk and said, put a set of Michelin's on that truck. So I spent $1,000 on it. Spent $1,000 on 4 Michelin tires. That set of tires lasted 120,000 miles, and I thought, daggum. And when they were worn, I put another set of Michelin's on, another $1,000, another 120,000 miles. And I was probably I sold the truck at about 320, so I was probably at 70 or 80,000 on the third set, whatever that would have been, and I promise you they'll go the distance. So I've had 25, 30 years of extraordinary success. Many of my friends who race GT cars on road courses use the Michelin Pilot Sport Series. Just stunning in terms of now those tires are performance tires. You're looking at grip and a variety of things that you wouldn't want on a 1-ton diesel truck towing a 21,000-pound trailer. But I buy Michelin's because Michelin engineers and manufactures a tire that gives me extreme service life. So among competing products, Bill Norton picks Michelin's. I special order them on new cars and trucks, and I put them on anything that we ever put on as a replacement. So that's the first part. Among competing products, you, the provider, you build in features that I value, and I'll choose your stuff over other people. That's the first part of differentiation. The second part is, and your customer must be willing to pay a premium. I paid $1,000 for a set of tires. I can buy tires for my truck for $300. They'll last about 8 or 10,000 miles, and they're called May-Pops because they may pop at any minute. I don't make enough money to buy cheap stuff. So my point is that the definition of differentiation has 2 component pieces. One, among competing products, customers will choose yours because you built in some features that they value. Piece number 2, they are willing to pay a premium for that. They're not trying to lowball. We just had a really neat steakhouse open in town called the Bull and Barrel. Dinner for 2 is about 120 bucks. Okay, can you go buy a piece of dead cow at other places for less than 120 bucks? I'm thinking yes. But these people are not competing, this new steakhouse is not competing on cost. They're competing, they are differentiating their products and their services from other food service establishments in meaningful ways. And they have, they're only open 3 or 4 days a week, and my wife and I, it took us 2 weeks to get reservations, then we had to cancel them because we have family coming into town. So I haven't been there yet. I'm still getting my cheese hamburgers at Wendy's. No, I'm not. Wendy's is not a bad place, but when I take my wife out for anniversary, it's Waffle House, yes. She loves country ham. Yo, that's a $4.10 upcharge. Dear Lord, I love that woman. Yeah, so we go to Waffle House for our anniversary. Differentiation, the definition. Among competing products, consumers choose yours because they value the features that you build in. The second piece, they're willing to pay a premium. I buy, this is not fancy or special or up down, 100% of my dress shirts come from Joseph Banks. They have a line of dress shirts called Travelers. They're 100% cotton, but they're impregnated with a chemical that makes them look good always, always. I don't have to iron them. Man, if you've ever had a cotton dress shirt, you know that it looks like hell when you're driving into work. But Joseph A. Banks impregnates the fabric with some chemical that resists wrinkles. These shirts are 100 bucks each. Can I buy a shirt for $25 at Belk's? I can. And I also typically wait until these things are on sale. And I often get 2 for 1 or 3 for 1. But my point is, I buy these dress shirts for a purpose because they resist wrinkling and I'm willing to pay a premium for them. That describes so much of what you and I do. There are some things where we should never compromise. Bedding, brakes, tires, shoes. There are plenty of things where I'm looking for something cheap. If I'm going up to lunch alone, food is fuel. I'd be delighted if I could find lunch for 5 or 6 bucks. If you and I are going to lunch together, then it's no longer food as fuel. You and I have some important social interaction. So I'll choose a different place. But my point is that Differentiation has two pieces to the definition. Your product or service has to be differentiable because early stage ventures cannot compete on cost. You don't have a customer base and you don't have volume of production to drive unit costs down. So if you're launching a new business, you can only compete on differentiation. You cannot compete on cost. So you must answer that question affirmatively. Is your product or service differentiable? Will potential customers choose yours over others because of the features in it, and are they willing to pay a premium? Have to answer that affirmatively. Let me scroll down to the market question. This is the third thing. So now you have to answer questions about the market in which you plan to launch your business. And I want to point out, this is important, that when we talk about Timmons' 4 anchors, number 3 and 4, the market and the venture team competencies, these things have multiple bullet points. You must address each one of them. Don't cheap out on this. That will be an unsuccessful attempt on your part. Answer each of the bullet points under these two. The first two only have one thing that you need to address. The value proposition, and then is it differential. These two anchors, characteristics of the market and then the notion of venture team competencies, have multiple points that you must address. So, if you look at the markets, is the market robust? What is its size? It'd be very easy for you to determine the absolute size of a market. How many new cars are sold in the United States every year? Well, for the last 10 years or thereabouts, it's been about 17 million. Now, used cars every year in the last 10 years sell between 38 and 40 million. Okay. So if you take 40 and you add it to 17, you get 57 million. I want to be the guy that sells windshield wipers or tires or something else that every one of those cars needs. So, what is the market size? You have to be able to discern that. Is the market growing or stagnant or contracting? Here's a goofy question. What's the market for VCRs? Is it growing, is it flat, or is it contracting? I would say that it doesn't exist. What do you think? What's the market for VCRs? You have to tell me that dynamic. Is the market on an upward curve? Is it flat, or is it declining? I wasn't planning on doing this. The passenger cars. Historically, passenger cars, sedans, had a very, very significant place in the North American market. Now, they're under 50%. They're down around 25, literally. Because trucks, vehicles that are built body on frame, and crossovers, vehicles that sort of emulate sport utility vehicles, but they're built on a car chassis, a car platform, those two things together represent 55% of the market. And then you got minivans and performance cars like the Prius. Sorry, I have to do that. Here's a Prius, wide open throttle. It's electric, it doesn't make any noise, at least at low speeds. All right, is the market growing, stagnant, or contracting? If you're talking about selling something for sedans, it's contracting. It's gotten significantly smaller in recent years. And I don't see a reversal. I see this burgeoning market in crossovers, and I see pickup trucks have gone from being purely work vehicles to being family vehicles. So, is the market populated with hyper-competitive firms? You can simply look at companies that are already in that industry and see how they behave. Here's a what if. What if I want to manufacture and sell a household cleaning product? Like, let's say, like a bleach, like a Clorox or Purex or some bleach. Let's say that that's what I want to do. It's simple to combine those chemicals, it's simple to bottle them, it's simple to distribute them through a lot of different retail outlets. So, I'm going to make up something that I don't know to be true. Let's say that the company that has the patent for Clorox, the company that manufactures and distributes Clorox, sees me come in as a new entrant. I want to sell some sort of household bleach, and they try to crush me. They send cease and desist letters. They go to all the stores where they have a presence, like K. Roger or Food Lion or whatever the case may be, and they say, okay, we're going to drop the price. I'm making this up from $1 a gallon to 34 cents a gallon. I can't make money at 34 cents a gallon, but they can subsidize the losses on that bleach with other products, can't they? You see my point? What they're doing is they're engaging in hyper-competitive behaviors. Alternatively, you may say some companies that say, you know, we don't recognize Norton as a threat. He's an early stage business, he has no scale, no customer base, he can be out there. So, what kind of an environment do you want to be in? You want to be in a hyper-competitive environment where people will spill their blood to push you out? You have to know that before you launch in a market. Can an incumbent, that would be you, can you earn enough gross profits so that you can fund product development and organic growth? It's very, very common for a business to launch on a single product. Elon Musk did that with Tesla. He launched on the Tesla S. It was a $100,000 plus sedan. I guess it's a nice car. But you can't sustain any business on one product. So very quickly, he rolled out the Model 3, which is supposed to be affordable, the Model Y, which is some sort of a crossover with gull-wing doors. And now he's smoking a lot of dope, and he's talking about tractor trailers and pickup trucks and other things like that. Give it up, Elon. My point is, you can successfully launch a business with one product or one service, but you can't sustain it, because you would then be a one-trick pony. And it is so easy for anybody to just attack you. You're vulnerable. You can launch with a single product or service, but you can't sustain. So very quickly, you need to develop, where it went, where did it go? You need to develop new products, and you need to be able to pay for organic growth. How do we expand in other markets? How do we get more stores, whatever the case may be? You simply cannot turn to debt or to the capital markets every time you need money. You have to fund organic growth, stuff that you pay for internally. So when we talk about the market, its robustness, you must address those 4 questions, those 4 bullet points. And let me shift now to the issue of venture team competencies. When you respond to the 5 bullet points that are presented here on page 823, you will have done a competent job of answering that question. What skill sets does the team possess? Let's assume that I want to start a business and I've got a good friend, and for the sake of discussion, he's a really, really great guy at personal selling. He just flourishes when he gets in front of somebody and he has a chance to present a product or service. He's really, really good at making the sale. So in my goofy example, my friend is really good at sales, direct sales, and I'm really good at designing and producing something. Okay, that's good. So how about distribution? How about after the sales support? How about accounting? Whatever the case may be. In my example, we only have 2 skill sets. I'm the guy that designs and manufactures the product, and he's the guy that sells it. And that's a great start, but it's incomplete. So what skill sets does the team possess now? Do we have any history of working together collaboratively? I have a friend in Louisville who's probably, I'll bet you Kent has successfully launched about 16 businesses, and one of them has gone public, and several of them have been very successful. And he's worked repeatedly with the same 2 or 3 people. They'll launch a venture, grow it, and then either have a professional managerial staff take it over or sell. My friend Ken is a serial entrepreneur. He's done this 15, 16 times. But the point is, he's worked with the same 2 or 3 people across at least 4 of these ventures, and they have been notably successful. They really have. So, does the team have any history of collaborative work? If you say no, that's not a big deal. But that is a point of awareness that you need to have, and that anyone else is going to invest in you. Is the team experientially grounded in the contemplated domain? What if I'm a guy who works for a telecom, like a wireless carrier, like a Verizon? I've been there 15 years, I'm a middle manager, and they throw me out. They're downsizing, and I get a $75,000 severance package. I'm just making all that up. So I am a guy with 15 years experience in the wireless telephone industry, and I've risen to the level of middle manager, and I get booted out, and I've got 75 grand to spend. So I immediately race over to Chick-fil-A and say, can I buy a franchise? And of course they say no. So I go to somebody else, whoever that may be, Church's, Kentucky Fried, don't really know, don't really care. So I take my 75 grand and I buy a chicken franchise. Okay, that seems pretty innocent. So here's a question that I would like you to answer sort of intellectually. You don't need to send me anything. If I've spent 15 years in telecommunications, what precisely do I know about the food service industry? I think the answer to that is 0! The big bagel. I know nothing. I know nothing about food service. I've never done it. That is something that is sadly called panic entrepreneurship. In this example that I'm crafting, I'm trying to quickly replace my lost income with the wireless carrier with income from this new business. But I know spin about the restaurant industry. So, does your team have any experience in the domain? 4, does any team member have prior experience in launching a new venture? That's simply answerable yes or no. Remember, this is you're assessing the viability. And then what skill sets are missing? I'll go back to the example I used a few minutes ago. I'm the guy that designed and developed something, and then I can produce it. And I've got a good friend who's going to be in the venture team with me that's great at sales. So we're missing everything else, aren't we? We're missing IT. I could probably legitimately be the operations guy if I'm the guy who's producing this stuff. But we need somebody at the CEO level. We need somebody with distribution, somebody who's going to do accounting and finance. We need a lot of things we don't have. Now, can we outsource some of that? Heck yes. But we need to have some of those capabilities in-house. So what are the gaps? We must answer that question. You have some people that have said, yes, I'll be a co-venturer with you. But there are other important functions that need to be addressed. So the point is that these 4 anchors, value proposition, is it differentiable? Tell me about the characteristics of the market, and then tell me about the venture team. That is Timmons' 4 anchors. And when Jeff developed that, he wanted people who were considering launching a business to take that framework and to overlay it on their idea. And think about this. If I'm an aspiring entrepreneur and I use Timmons' 4 anchors and I say, yes, I can demonstrate value both to me as the business owner and to my customer base. Yes, I can differentiate my product or service. And I look at the market and I think, here's the size, it's growing, it's not populated with hyper-competitive firms, and I believe I can earn enough gross profit so that I can support growth and product development. And then I look at the venture team and identify the people that we have and the skills and recognize what the gaps are. In that example that I just crafted, I could say to you affirmatively that I've taken Timmons' 4 anchors. It's this venture screen. I have a new venture in mind, and this screen assesses its potential for success. That's exactly what this thing does. And this also folds into something we've talked about earlier, just in the first 2 weeks of this course. And that is that what we are doing together is we are building a durable skill set. Whether you do this right after graduation or not is irrelevant. You can do it 7 years out, 10 years out, 15. You are building a durable skill set. How do I search for and discover an idea? How do I assess its potential for success? So again, these things fold into what literally is a skill set that you get to carry with you for the rest of your life. So I want to point out that when you do the PMT statement, when you actually deliver that document to me, and when you do the venture screen, you actually deliver that document to me, there's no targeted length. On the venture screen, you have to competently answer those 4 questions. Jeff Timmons says, here are the 4 anchors. You must competently answer them exactly as it is presented here. In the PMT statement, I think I suggested to you that a well-done PMT statement is a half a page. It's not a lot in terms of text. Getting there requires a lot of thought, but writing it, presenting it, will be relatively modest. So there's no targeted length. What you must do is you must competently respond to the 4 anchors, and you must competently write the PMT statement. So, length is not an issue. And that takes us to the end of today's class. This is literally the end of our 2nd week together. This is day 5 of week 2. So, the attendance question. What date has the Ford Motor Company announced on which it will debut the 2021 Bronco? How easy was that? All right, love you. Talk to you all soon.